here who don't live here are shocked by all the traffic and the chaos and the mayhem that could possibly happen out on the streets, right? I've seen this in other countries, not just this one. But I'm driving along to coffee this morning with Himanshu, and we almost got hit. I mean, I was going, oh my God, we're going to die. But we made it through, didn't bump into anybody at all. And I said to Himanshu, you know, it boggles my mind that with all the traffic that I've seen in the days that I've been here, and all the chaos of all this traffic, we haven't seen one accident. How is that? And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, AI. Oh, that didn't go over well, sorry. But anyway.
Is that a disclaimer that this event might be an accident right now?
Say again?
Is that a disclaimer that this event might be an accident event?
It could be. In which case, it's not AI's fault. All right, so I'm going to preface this with some remarks about what I do and why I do it. In my business of consulting in manufacturing companies for more than 40 years, I kept an open ear to what customers had to say. When they felt pain, I wanted to know why. I didn't want to know that they just felt pain. I wanted to know what the root cause of that pain is. And in the same time frame, you take a look at common line of business applications. What do I mean by that? I mean a package solution. For instance, an ERP solution for a manufacturing company, line of business applications. They are classically transactional systems in their design. They require transactions because accountants, in the end, require debits and credits. And in order to get there, you've got to have transactions. The screen design for these line of business applications reflects that in terms of complex screens with many, many data cells, with many different screens layered upon one another, menus with many choices to get to where you want to go. And what we found from our pain points of our customers was that they finally got there, and when they got there to take the action they needed to take, they lost the context of why they started that journey to begin with. Right? What does that mean? I'm going to kind of react to Vlad's perspective. Separate the problem from the solution. What is the problem? How do you visualize the pain they're having? And why are they having that pain? If they're having pain, they're not participating. And we do work with factories, with folks that put hands on pieces and parts, assemblies, machinists, people who turn wrenches, you name it. They do that. They value themselves as skilled people. They don't value themselves as bookkeepers. They hate transaction screens. And as a result, they don't do them well. They don't comply. And as a result of that, so we're going from the root cause all to the consequences of those, you don't get viable data that means anything. So you lose track of what your actual costs are in manufacturing in terms of labor hours. You lose the concept of what it is to protect your company's reputation in terms of profitability, quality, and on-time delivery. Things go to hell fast. So when we had a situation with the ERP solution that I've been bound to for many, many years, and I fill in the donut hole of missing functionality in that system with our developments, the customer said, our employees hate that job shop data screen. It presents data they don't want to interact with. They have to say who they are over and over and over again. They have to clock in for the day. They have to clock on to a work order. They have to remember to clock off a work order. They sometimes go to break and don't clock on the work order. As a result, our costing is wrong, yada, yada, yada. It just goes on and on. So I'm thinking, if they don't want to participate, why is that? Why is that? Well, first place, they value their time doing the wrench turning that they do, the actual hands-on fabrication that they do. That's what they're getting paid for. They don't think they should be getting paid for cooking. Okay? Then what is the affinity between them and an information system? In this case, there is no affinity. They're not friends. If you take a look at what they are friendly with, they are friendly with the Moshe's smartphone. They use their smartphone. They're friendly with their ATM experience. And then they come to work every day with at least one finger and one eye. At least that. So the theory of how to separate the problem from the solution is to remove the objections and focus on the things that you know they like to do. And then use that as the basis for formulating the solution. That's how I operate. The other way I operate is I always drive to the highest level of abstraction to solve the problem. I eliminate steps that are completely unnecessary. Example, I am here. I am known by the system. The system knows my employee ID. Why do I have to tell it every doggone time what my employee ID is? That's completely unnecessary. In the flow of business, once work has been authorized, why do I have to identify a work order by work order ID? Why? That should be unnecessary, right? When I go to an ATM, I just give them my smart chip and things happen. And I hop and back. I move things around on the screen, and I'm done. It's got to be that simple. So what we did is we said, okay, let's make something that's nasty and transactional and objectionable as easy to use as what draws them in as users. Make it as easy, make the affinity there for the user interface. So I said to the owner, I will design a system that replaces all of these transactional screens that your employees hate. And we will still give you all the data that you require for costing purposes, so you know where you are in the production cycle and you know what your costs are. And because they are drawn to it, because they're friendly with it, you're going to have a higher level of compliance and therefore more valid data to actually represent your factory's performance. Now, we have a mantra in what we do. It's called manufacturing velocity. What is the period of time between when you start committing resources to the time you get an invoice? If you compress that time, your velocity of operations is higher. Anything that gets in the way of that is a gap that costs you money in terms of hours or direct costs. So with that in mind, the owner of that company wrote me an initial check for $20,000 and said, get started. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I want to do. So we committed to that. So what is represented here is what is called a work center department called Crating and a work center called 500. You can do whatever you want. We actually have a three-level deep concept of department, a work center, which is one or more places where people do work, and a work cell, which could be a single desk or a single machine or some single point within that. Data flows in manufacturing automatically from the get-go once it's planned and released. Why would you have to tell it what work order you're going to work on? Why not just see that work order in a dispatch list? This is automatically done just by simply saying, I'm looking at the Crating Work Center, Crating Department, Work Center 500. And I, as a supervisor, I'm the lead in this group. I'm saying, we're going to make these active, and I've already made them active because I want them to show up in the actual work center screen. So if we go to showing work orders, we will see that there are 2 work orders that anybody can work on. And that's, I didn't have to say, this work order is first, this work order is second. It automatically produced these objects. All right, so a little bit of a word about objects. This work order card is an object. It has attributes just like awareim has attributes. An employee is an employee card, and it has attributes just like awareim has attributes. But more importantly, these objects have states, S-T-A-T-E-S. Current states of these work orders are that they are active. And if they are active, they show in the screen where people can do work. If they're inactive, they don't show it. So some supervisor says, do these two. Now, Himanshu is going to go to work on the second work order. I simply drag and drop Himanshu on that work order, and the clock starts for Himanshu on that work order. So, what is happening in the background? This is all in real-time connection to awareim. And when I drop Himanshu's object on the work order object, it opened a transaction line with a starting time, and we are now accounting for his direct labor from this point on until his state changes. When is his state likely to change? It's likely to change if somebody calls him up and says, I need you to work on work order 7525, right? In which case, what do we want to do? We want to automatically unassign him from the work order he's on and close out that direct labor line. And we want to automatically begin a direct labor line for him on work order 7525 by simply dragging and dropping. There are other states. This work order has 3 states that are observable. It could be in setup, which means somebody's probably setting up tooling or getting things stacked and ready to go. We track machine time, and we track labor time. This is currently in labor with 1 employee working on it. So if I click setup, this goes upside down, I'll apologize. It's updating now. It's updated to where I am, and it's changed another line of data that says, not only are we doing labor on this, we are doing also the activity of setup, and the employee who's doing it is Britt. You don't have to do anything else, just touch. Okay? If it weren't, this is not set up for this customer for doing machine hour accounting, but we can do machine hour accounting. And we track all of these hours down to 1/10,000th of an hour. And we do that because we are at a time where the Internet of Things is now even in small and medium-sized business, and machines can in fact self-report. But humans cannot self-report the way machines do, and that's why we've developed this the way it is. Now, another thing that we do is we have the ability to say to Britt, okay, you can go to lunch. Okay, there you go. Now my state has changed, and my labor line has been completed and posted to the job costing system, and I'm now tracking my time while I'm at lunch. And when I go home for the day, it's as simple as going off-site. So all of these things can also be automated based upon, failed to update something going on in the background. All of these can be automated based upon company policies. For instance, the company says, all of my employees go on break at the same time and they'll go on lunch at the same time. Well, guess what? We can automate that too. We don't have to have the employee, every employee in the company say, I'm going on break now. We don't do that. And all of the direct labor accounting is being done automatically in the back. So this is a React front end. The REST services with Aware are through Express.js, and we have no throughput issues at all. None. For some reason, and I'm not going to investigate because it's working perfectly well, the front end UI is very responsive to what we want to do. When it's time to report production, we finally do get to an actual data entry piece. If the machine is not going to self-report the quantity complete, somebody's got to go in and do that. So if I put in 100 here, and in this case it's a touch screen keyboard that comes up as numeric, and it's just, oh, I've got to put in some comments. Okay? And I submit. The actual count goes down to 400, and it's displayed immediately on the screen, and that came back from awareim. Now, we can also do math locally. We don't have to do it on awareim. This environment is completely capable of doing what I would say standard, mathematic operations in the UI, or you can elect to do them on the aware side. So this was all done with a code generation system done by a company called Lovable. It was originally done in 2013, this very same design. It took more than 100, I think probably close to 150 hours of hand coding from a JavaScript coder to give us the same kind of look and feel and result. It's just that all the CSS of that time was not acceptable as CSS this time. So it was time to redesign it. So I said, I think maybe Lovable can do this, but I need to have a rules engine and a database on the back end that the customer will accept. In this case, the customer would not accept Supabase, which is what this product is natively hooked up to. Instead, they use Microsoft SQL Server. Thus, the absolute requirement for REST services, period. But we can also, and I showed this, was it yesterday or the day before, in the scheduling system, where we're dealing with not only a resident SQL Server enterprise level database, but we have a SQL Server Express local database for the purposes of all the scratchpad simulations for scheduling that can be done. So all of these are possible, and you just mix and match them as you need for a particular customer's requirement. So what is the reason I did this? Well, a user is more likely to successfully and repeatedly interact with this as a user interface than they are a transactional screen. Pretty simple and straightforward. And that's why we also used the same approach that I showed the other day with the scheduling screen. To do planning and scheduling and manufacturing and a line of business application designed in the 50-year-old context of how you do design of those things, you had to go to a minimum of half a dozen separate screens. I'm dealing with a planned purchase order. I think I might want to release it. Okay, I have to go to another screen to release it. And then I have to go to another screen to see if it's properly accounted for in the planned inventory on a certain date in the future. That's just, no. that's not going to get the job done. Why? Because we're all consumers here, right? And I can assure you, you can go to the bank with the phone. You do not spend time on website applications that get in your way of doing what you need to do. I can assure you of that. That's a common human trait. And when I get frustrated, I just unsubscribe to things. I'm gone, I'm out of it. On the other hand, when you need to see complex data, and you need to see it finally in a grid, you better have a product that can do that. Oh, right. What's going on? Okay. All right. So let's go back to our dispatch list. We use this dispatch screen spreadsheet called tree grid. We can find it themselves. Somebody should kick this hotel with their internet. This is nuts. Come on, here we go. 2, 3, 4. All right, so move it. Okay, there we go. Fine. So what is this? This is a modern UI. By the way, if you don't like this UI, you can restyle it right here on the fly. There's no problem. You can make it bigger, smaller, change the colors. You don't have to call a programmer to do that. You can do it yourself as a user. I'm partial to the style of gradient, just because that's my style. I'd like to make it a little bit bigger, so everybody can see it. All right. We also said displaying a grid of information and then requiring somebody to flip from here to go to a whole different menu location to look at another grid or a drill down of that information. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I do something that Himanshu hates. When we do views, we do complex views, and we uplift a load of data so that I can do the following. I can tailor through a column chooser what I need to see on the fly as the end user. No ifs, ands, or buts. And once I've done that, this is kind of like I can have it my way. I can also save a layout by moving things around. I want that there, I want that there, I want a filter here, I want a secondary filter here, I want to filter by marking, or I want to do a filter of selected lines, and I don't want to have to call a programmer to do that. That's stuff that I already know if I have the basic skill level of an Excel user. That's the base level of skill that somebody has to have to use this. So that's the story, folks. The paradigm has shifted. If an application is hard to use, guess what? Nobody's going to use it if they have an alternative. And I plan to be that alternative in the manufacturing world. There you go.